important part of my responsibility.
The 5AA Breakfast Show. Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395. Adelaide's 5AA. Interactive radio. Email on air at 5AA.com.au. Peter Godfrey.
After 5 now. Let's head to New Zealand and catch up with Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. Hey, Selwyn, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Peter.
It's good. A couple of weeks since we spoke, as I was away last week, but good to have you back this week. Yeah. And we can get on to some political stories. So it's all politics this week by the sound of it. With
it is.
What you've got.
All that's kind of hitting the news this week, Peter, is politics.
Bit like us here. You probably heard our news of the last week, but
I was going to say, can we swap our Prime Minister for yours?
Oh, okay.
Do you think Kevin Rudd wants to become a Kiwi citizen?
You never know. Well, maybe not at the moment. Maybe if you'd asked him a week ago, or a week and a half ago, but he seems to be happy where he is at the moment.
Yeah, for a while.
For a while at least. Yeah. We're not too sure. What we're going to talk, Kim Dotcom, we've spoken about him before, and issues surrounding, in spy laws and your spy agency, but in regard to all that, so he's had a bit of a you've said a fiery exchange with John Key at a committee meeting on what? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, the committee meeting is there to hear submissions for this new, the government's new proposed intelligence spy laws that we've talked about in past weeks. That's the GCSB, or the Government Communications Security Bureau, and it's traditionally had a law there that says it's illegal for you to spy on New Zealanders or permanent residents over here in New Zealand, but you can do whatever you like to spy on everyone else, even if they're in New Zealand land. But then we found out, just in brief, we found out that it had been spying on Kiwis, basically on behalf of the police and the SIS, the intelligence service, etc., etc., etc. 88, it admitted to illegally spying on 88 people over the recent times. So what that did is it opened a floodgate. It's like the genie came out of the bottle, Peter, and the politicians, the government politicians, couldn't shove this thing back in. So what they came up with was, how are we going to make a solution for this? Well, it did it illegally, so what we'll do is we'll make it all legal for it in the future, and the spy agency will be able to spy on all the Kiwis it wants to, etc., etc. It'll even go toward, if corporations and things need the GCSB skills, it'll outsource that skills to them. It'll provide that service to them, so it sounds like they're setting it up to actually be spies for hire, by the sound of it, in some ways. Excuse me. But this particular meeting that's been held down in Parliament has been chaired by the Prime Minister. On that committee, as members, there is the leader of the Labour Party, David Shearer. There's the leader of the Green Party, Dr. Russell Norman. And there's another National Party government minister, Tony Ryle, and the controversial John Banks, the leader of the Right Economic Party Act. Now, on that committee, there's opportunity for public to submit on whether or not they support the bill in particular ways, or they're against it. Now, this Kim Dotcom, the internet tycoon that owned Mega Upload, that was the FBI and the New Zealand government just pounced on him a couple of years ago and destroyed his business in that way, saying he was a pirate. Now, he saw his opportunity, Peter, and he thought, right, I'm going to go and do the submission. I'll be face-to-face with this Prime Minister, his key adversary, if you like, for the first time in what he says is forever. And he got there, and they stared at each other down, kind of thing, and toward the end of Kim Dotcom's submission, that's where the fiery aspects came, and there was a point where John Key said to him, Kim Dotcom said, I had met the Prime Minister. Basically, he was saying the Prime Minister had lied in saying that he did not know of Kim Dotcom prior to these raids, that he'd misled politicians, the people in New Zealand and the Parliament, and the Prime Minister replied, oh, no, that's not the case. I know I didn't know. And he says, I know you did know. And then he said to the Prime Minister, why are you going red then, Prime Minister? And John Key replied, why are you sweating? So there was this fire exchange, and this kind of thing overnight has gone global. Everything from the Washington Post in the United States to Reuters to Bloomberg to all over the world, all the Guardian, etc., etc. This has become big news for John Key, probably in a way that he didn't want.
Okay, so have people come out, in support of Key's side or in support of Dotcom, or evenly divided? Or
well, no, it's not evenly divided at all. Certainly, Telecom, Vodafone, all of these telco companies have put submissions in, verbal submissions and written submissions, saying the bill is absolutely overstepping its mark and its boundaries. It's too much of a power grab as far as intelligence gathering is concerned. You've got obviously the civil liberties organisations saying that it's gone too far. You've even got those that are involved with internet security, who I think the government was positioning to think that they would have them on side by being able to provide them high-end services from the GCSB. They're saying in different areas, we don't like this in this area, and also there's no indication of compartmentalising information that it may gather from our corporations. Is it going to be sharing that? As is its brief with the Five Eyes network, the United States, Australia, Canada and Britain, and that's not satisfactory to us. Of course, Kim Dotcom is dead against it on many grounds, and he was saying that the abuse of information that was gathered from him and then provided to the United States is self-evident, that it destroyed his mega upload business, that on every legal point so far that he's challenged in the New Zealand courts, he's won, etc., etc., and he is saying the misuse of these powers, that he's a living example of that, and also how information can be used out of context, basically to get a result by the authorities. And you also had former Green MP Keith Locke, who was speaking on behalf of what it was like to also be one of New Zealand's most spied men. Now, Keith Locke, he's a very personable and very gentle guy, but he's always had socialist convictions, and from the age of 12, he's now in his 60s, and from the age of 12, he and his family were under New Zealand SIS surveillance, and his file was just, a huge file. Even when he was an MP, he was being spied on. So all of this has come out of the woodwork. Those in favour, there are a few, but honestly, though, Peter, they're few in number, and they're being swamped by the opposition to this. The public, it's hard to say. The public's... so
it's still, you've said that before. So it hasn't sort of grabbed the public's attention, the New Zealand public's attention as much.
Yeah, there is response, and there is critical response. But I think what the centre-right, what the national-led government sowed out there and started to spin very early on was, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. And so other people were kind of countering that by saying something that was said in the United States as well, that I've got nothing to hide or worry about if that information is gathered and used by people I trust. And that's where the counter to it is concerning.
So that issue of trust
people.
Is what's there, is the big question, Yes.
Okay. And now there's a push for journalists in New Zealand as well that's been led by David Fisher, one of the top journalists in New Zealand, certainly at the New Zealand Herald. And he's putting in a challenge to the New Zealand government under the Official Information Act request to cough up information on what journalists have come under surveillance as well. And most of us in this kind of area where we've reported suspect and have good reasons to suspect that we've been under surveillance at different times on different issues we've been covering. There was also a very, very sinister account by Dr. Kate Dews and also her husband, former naval commander in the British Navy, Rob Green, that they submitted to the committee yesterday, and they gave an account that goes back decades. Kate Dew is most significant here in New Zealand as being one of the champions of the anti-nuclear movement in the 80s, and she's married to this former British naval officer, naval commander, Rob Green, who used to be a commander in charge of the nuclear button, basically. He was the commander of the fleet of Buccaneer aircraft, that their purpose and their training was to deploy nuclear weapons against Leningrad when the Soviet Union was intact. And he got to to a stage in his career where he thought, this is madness. I just can't be a part of this anymore. And it was like a road to Damascus kind of turn, and he ended up marrying one of New Zealand's most strident anti-nuclear people. So it's a fascinating tale, though, of both of them being under surveillance and having even their letters cut open. Even to this day, their letters delivered, having been sliced open, the contents missing, etc., etc. And I've got to say, Kate Jews is also on disarmament matters as an official advisor to the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. So it's not like she's subversive in any way. She's just a person with strong conviction.
A question just sort of away from that for a second, but sort of has some relevance there. The use of drones. We've had some discussions tonight on this, following our police here are looking at the idea of having some drones to help with their investigations and so on. Discussions we've had overnight sort of raising the idea of, the concerns about privacy, whether they're going to be using them to spy through your window, but also on an issue you brought up, the abuse of information. So are drones used in New Zealand, and are there any reactions in the public?
Yes, the answer is yes, and it's a tentative kind of cautionary mood, I think, amongst the public relating to drones, but the police have been trialling them. They haven't been deploying them in any big numbers. It's kind of in that phase, I think, where it's seeking funds from the government to get more of this type of equipment. I think the public here in New Zealand, I think, the issues of privacy and that come up, but when it comes to the police, if they are being used for issues of criminality and investigation and, and in ways like armed offenders kind of issues, operations, then I think the public's sympathetic to that. When it comes to the spying aspects, that's one of the common moods that has come out of these meetings, that why should the spy organisations have these huge powers when it's not necessarily issues of of criminality that are involved here? That it's spying for spying's sake. This communication we're talking now, Peter, is being recorded somewhere. And that what we have said here, the concerns are basically that could be used in some context at some stage, even if it's 20 years down the track. It's that kind of concern. With the drones, I think the police could probably in New Zealand win that public confidence battle, if you like, by ensuring and giving clear guidance on having been given clear guidance on how they would be deployed.
Yeah, all right. We better move on to our final topic because we're right out of time. I've only got a minute left, Selwyn. But the Maori Party was a coalition partner with the your national-led government in disintegration mode. Yeah,
very quickly. There was a by-election on the weekend in one of the Maori seats in the North Island. The Maori Party that is propping up the national-led government here, it came a distant third. And that's caused the co-leader, Peter Sharples, to say, I'm stepping down as leader and I'm going to get out of politics. I can't contribute anymore. And the party looks like it's completely falling apart. So the government's losing its friends very quickly, Peter.
It's all falling down. There we go. Politics is a funny thing, isn't it? All right, Selwyn, thank you for your contribution tonight. We'll catch you again next week.
Okay, Peter.
Thanks, Selwyn. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Selwyn Manning in New Zealand. Head to livenews.co.nz for more. And Stone's got our news in just a moment. Then back to text, calls and emails here at 1395 Adelaide's 5AA.
No time to waste. Get behind the wheel of your new Mitsubishi Mirage Sports Demo from $11,990 at Agostino Mitsubishi.
5:30 on 5AA, windy with showers developing, a top of 17. I'm Ann Stone with Adelaide's comprehensive news. There's been a military coup in Egypt. The army has overthrown embattled Islamist President Mohamed Morsi, suspended the constitution and called early elections. Millions of Egyptians have taken to Tahrir Square in Cairo in celebration after days of deadly protests demanding Morsi be thrown out of office. Head of the military, Abdel Fattah Khalil al-Sisi, says the president didn't honour an agreement several weeks ago to try to find a resolution.
The hope was made that there should be a national gathering and to have a roadmap for the future, to give comfort and trust and stability for these people.
Kevin Rudd is back on the road visiting Indonesia today in his first trip as